Before anybody complains, and one of you almost certainly will, I know that we've covered Heysham before, back in the old days when these films were rubbish. Alright, even more rubbish then. But that was just St. Peter's, with its Saxon cross and its stone sarcophagus, and its Saxon doorway, and its hog's back, and its rock-cut graves for extremely tiny little Vikings, and all the other guff. This time, however, me and Jeannie McIntosh took a look at some of the other interesting tidbits associated with Heysham village, albeit mostly to be found near the aforementioned St. Peter's. There was a service on at St. Peter's anyhow, so we couldn't film inside, which was our original intention. We didn't seem very welcome, to be honest. I couldn't remember if we'd filmed St. Patrick's on our last visit, the ruin on the edge of the cliffs, allegedly built by St. Patrick himself after crossing the ocean on a millstone, but we thought we'd film it again just to be on the safe side. And because it's about as exposed as it could possibly get up there, predictably it rained. And when I say rained, it bucketed down with biblical proportions. Jeannie McIntosh thought that was funny, because I was wearing a woolen, non-waterproof coat. So when she slid down the barrows a few minutes later and ended up flapping about like a flounder, I almost broke a rib laughing. Unfortunately, I didn't film it, which was a shame, because footage of a 90-year-old falling headfirst into a mud bath would almost certainly have improved our viewing figures. Back in 1903, the foundations of St. Patrick's were given a bit of a rebuild by local interfering busybodies, at which point, presumably, somebody stuffed this Norse cross base that, if I hadn't been soaking wet, I would have paid more attention to, underneath one corner of the building, without recognising what it was. It probably contained a keel cross once, confirming St. Patrick's itself as a keel, although we'd already gathered that. Not far behind St. Patrick's, in a pleasantly wooded area of the Barrows whose official name I've currently forgotten, stands the Druid Stone, or rather stones, because there seems to be more than one. Nobody knows what the Druid Stones were originally used for. Better fix the Druid from Asterix the Gaul mixing his super strength Viagra potion springs to mind, but the rectangular hollows were obviously carved by industrious humans in the long ago past, and might even be connected to this standing stone stroke cross shaft in some fashion. It's not a very good shot, I know, but I wasn't about to risk life and limb hanging off the edge of the cliff to get a better one. A couple of yards from the Druid Stones stands this diminutive but recognisable amphitheatre fashioned from the rocks, complete with caves just large enough to have once served as prehistoric bunk beds, an empty packet of Tesco iced fingers, possibly Paleolithic, like my jokes, and other archaeological evidence involving flintwork of Mesolithic occupation. All in all, an ideal place to live for those ancient aborigines, protected in their beds by the cliffs from any untoward predators, and conveniently situated for the Royal Pub down below. We had a closer look at the aforementioned Royal, a building that started life as an Elizabethan barn before enlarging its vocabulary and becoming a 17th century coaching inn. However, because we couldn't afford to sell any more internal organs at our age, we decided to forego lunch there. There are a couple of prehistoric barrows in Heysham. Me and Jeannie McIntosh climbed Crimewell Lane in order to track one down, but it was difficult to work out exactly what and where it was. We think this was it, held in detention by the electricity board because nothing else around here fitted the bill. Don't complain to us if it wasn't. After that, we thought we'd give the other barrow a miss. Then there's the Holy Well at the base of St. Peter's. Old vaulted wells such as these are often connected with prehistoric rituals. Although St. Patrick's Well, they're not terribly inventive when it comes to names around here, was difficult to investigate because somebody had fenced it off in case the dysentery demon escaped. Heritage centres are always good places to go if you want more historical information, providing you can always find them amongst all the other Elizabethan and Jacobean buildings, that is. For some reason we thought that this was the Heysham Heritage Centre. We don't know what it is, some sort of art house bush shelter. We walked past the genuine heritage centre several times before discovering that it was closed. Soaked and, in Jeannie McIntosh's case, coated in mud, we sought shelter in a reasonably priced pub. Heysham Old Hall nowadays obviously isn't quite as grand as once it was, but it can still lay claim to being the oldest occupied building in Heysham. Built in 1598 by Robert Edmondson. Presumably he had some help. Like most Tudor halls, it has its own priest hole, discovered in 1888 behind the hearth during alterations, along with a set of secret stairs leading up into the attic. It makes a change from priest meeting in a secret dungeon, I suppose. I couldn't be bothered filming it myself, so after giving Jeannie McIntosh a short demonstration on how to use the camera, I left it to it and went for a cigarette. Here's the result. Put your fingers through that, that's it. Now you got it, and then you just press less. Can't.
Me? Okay. Can I just film a bit in this corner?
What, that?
I did ask her. I asked
No, you
her.
can't.
Carry on.
I just want to film this over in this corner.
Don't point it over there, love, you'll break it.
Go on.
Checking the
Thank you.
beanstalk here.
You know how old this pub is?
Yeah, 1598.
It was here when Oliver Cromwell and 150 yards away.
Really?
Under him.
And I used to go down
Yeah,
there.
oh, the
and I used
priest
to
hole,
wind
yeah.
up on
Yeah.
the beach, lad.
There'll be fear and trembling at the BAFTAs this year. Before we leave Heysham, possibly for the last time, I'd just like to mention the Glebe Garden attached to St. Peter's. Possibly one of the creepiest places I've ever visited, outside of a Garstang Blue-induced nightmare. Ostensibly, the garden's an attractive attachment to the graveyard, populated by the usual ensemble of memorial benches. That's before you notice the randomly placed offerings to consumerism and childhood illnesses. These aren't memorials, just juxtapositions to the otherwise pleasant foliage that, for some reason, made my skin creep. Enough, bugger off. Just remember before you do so to subscribe and meet us back here again in time for the next episode.